Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is the Piracy Show. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to pull one comment out of ship updates, going to kind of highlight it and address it, and then we'll move on to the other comments. Now, the comment that I want to pull out was the one from Angelo Ralph, who basically said, you know, at a minute 22 in the video, which is the point in the video where I repeated what Disco Lando said, which is the Nox having a piece of crap view. He says at 122, but the view you showed us was the broken view. I don't understand why you would act like that's what the view would be like on the final version. And if it's meant to be a joke, why wouldn't you make it clear to your viewers that it isn't the final product? Well, see, at the very beginning of the episode, I used the clip from the Bug Smashers where they're actually acknowledging the fact that the view is broken and they're trying to fix it. Obviously, there's still some steps to be taken. Probably going to have to bring in Zane, you know, who is the UI guy, and maybe tweak the HUD on the bike a little bit to make it fit with the new view. Maybe there might be some deeper issues there, but you know, they are iterating on it and they are fixing it. And I took the highlight from the show where they're fixing it. What I was trying to get across when I highlighted his comment about it being a piece of crap view is that, you know, I don't know if you've watched any of my videos before or you've been around, but I've highlighted issues with the Hurricane, the Buccaneer, the Defender during their concept sales and said, here are things to watch out for. Here are points of concern. And in a lot of those cases, I've kind of gotten lambasted for highlighting these things. That CIG, like with whether it's turret mechanics on the Hurricane, missing features on the Buccaneer, which were originally supposed to be part of it, and the view on the Defender. I've highlighted these things. CIG has gone on to acknowledge and said, oh, no, these are issues, and we are going to fix them. Turret mechanics, the big fix that we're getting in 3.0. The issue with the view on the Defender, which was something that was actually tracked very early in development, but somehow still made it all the way to the final product. And, you know, here with the Nox, and of course the missing features on the Buccaneer, the gun rack, little smuggling area, a little bit of cargo capacity that was all eventually dropped to just make it another fighter. These are all things that I've pointed out in the past. CIG has acknowledged and promised to fix. The point that I was trying to get across is that, you know, here's, you know, the community manager at CIG saying it's a piece of crap view. And, you know, it's like, oh yeah, you know, haha. But if I said it, I get lambasted for it, right? So I was kind of playing around with that a little bit, because I always find it endlessly fascinating that I can point out something, CIG can acknowledge it, and say, we're going to fix it. And I'm the bad guy for pointing it out. You know, I find that fascinating. All right, moving on. Are graceful. If they nerf the Redeemer, I'm going to freak out on them every day for the next 10 years. I don't know that they're going to nerf the Redeemer, but I don't discount the possibility that that's going to happen. I mean, certainly if you look at the base Vanguard next to the base Redeemer, there is a massive disparity in firepower and utility between the two ships. Now, of course, the Vanguard is going to be much longer range. It's going to be a ship that's designed to go long range and, you know, get into battles, defend objectives, and then fly all the way back home. Certainly why it was built with that living space on the inside of it. And so, depending on how all that works out in the final game, maybe that's where the value of the Vanguard comes in as CIG perceives it. But certainly the Redeemer, I think that it's not so much going to be a nerf as it's going to be an overall visual shift somewhat in how the Redeemer is presented to us. I think they're going to basically, in my opinion, they're going to take the engine pods off and they're going to replace them with completely different engine pods. Now, of course, the Redeemer it's a little bit of a controversy. Sort of, but not really. the there were a lot of questions around when the Redeemer won TNGS, but I think one of the things that I would point out, if I can put on my tinfoil hat for a second, is that CIG actually put the Redeemer out of the contest. If you remember, they voted it out, and then it was amongst a collection of ships that the community got the opportunity to vote back into the competition. Ships that had been excluded that the community could then vote back in, and the Redeemer went right back in and went on to win that contest. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that do strongly dislike the Redeemer, but it did do that. That is a thing that actually happened, and the Redeemer went on to win. And I feel that there may, at CIG, be a certain undercurrent of, we really don't like this design, and we don't want this design in the game. And so I think that they've been kind of waiting for an opportunity to kind of modify it or change it. I don't think it might be so much a question of the firepower as the overall visual of the ship, and they've been wanting to wait for, you know, the right time to strike to kind of go in and make their own changes to the ship. And so I think that that's probably what's going to happen, and I have a feeling it's going to be the engine pods, if anything. All right, next up, Cronus. Is it only me not excited about the Nox? I will be more excited about the redone Cutlass. 100% agree there. Hopefully they redo the Super Hornet and make it the premier go-to fighter that it was supposed to be. Super. Basically, the Nox is boring. So, in terms of the Nox, like, I understand the appeal of the Nox. I mean, it's kind of like a speeder bike and a bike from Akira kind of mashed together. I totally see the appeal of it. You know, I almost dropped money on it. I almost did it. Like, I lingered on that button more than once, and nah. But for me, like, I don't really even need, say, like, an LTI chit that I can turn in later for a better LTI ship. I have everything I need, basically. Like, my fleet is built. It's done, barring any massive, completely crazy ship. There's nothing more that I really need to hit the ground running in Star Citizen. So I'm really, for me to buy the Nox, it would really have to be something groundbreaking in it, and to me it just really wasn't. But it's, once again, it's a matter of personal taste. As for the redone Cutlass, I really think that the Cutlass, you know, the Cutlass is a ship that I've talked about a lot, and I really think that the Cutlass is going to get so much value and so much use out of just, not just the basic features of the ship, but in, you know, in the gameplay, the sliding doors, the ability to carry a vehicle, so many different features and so many different ways that you can configure it. I think the Cutlass is going to be like such a strong ship in the final version of the PU. Now, as for the Super Hornet, I think that a lot of the systems that make the Super Hornet super, the things that make the Hornet, like the whole Hornet family, so strong, are the fact that, comparatively speaking, it's kind of the AR-15 of the Star Citizen universe. You know, it has so many options. There are so many things that you can do with it. You can make it into a stealth fighter. You can make it into a scout ship. You know, a bit of E-War was implied at 1.2 with the tracker. So there's a lot of different directions that you can go with the Super Hornet, a lot of different ways that you can configure it with those two seats. And there's a lot of the gameplay elements that we still don't have access to or have full functional access to that I think are going to add depth and value to that ship that have not yet been fully realized, if you know what I mean. So I think that as the game brings like Item System 2.0 and then all these different different ideas and all these different features into the game, the real value of the Super Hornet, which at this point has been implied but we really haven't seen, is going to come to fruition. And that's what's going to make it into like this AR-15, this kind of generalist, useful in so many different ways and reconfigurable in so many different ways weapon in the Star Citizen universe. And I think you know, I still hold by a comment that I made, you know, I think years ago now, relative to the Hornet, and in that it is going to be the generalist go-to weapon in the Star Citizen universe. It is going to be that, you know, basic battle rifle that everyone's going to want in their arsenal, just because you can just quickly reconfigure it and do so many different things on one platform. All right, next up, Barney Granero. I think the Nox has been created as they needed a space bike to fit in the MISC Freelancer. The Dragonfly looked a bit tight entering the cargo bay during the Gamescom demo, and they've also had to expand the Cutlass significantly. MISC have an association with the Xeon. Every time I pronounce that, I'm like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Which is why I think this is not a Tavaran vehicle, even if it looks nothing like the Scout. Please, can the next space bike be a fold-up, twist-and-go vehicle from Kruger? I would like to fit it in the cargo hold of my Aurora. I don't know. I think that I don't think that it's really a situation of it having to fit in the Freelancer, because once again, you know, the Dragonfly does fit in the Freelancer, and there is like a kind of a crunched down version of the Dragonfly when it kind of folds up a little bit, when the arms or legs, if you want to call them that, kind of fold in a little bit with the Dragonfly. So here's an image of like the different modes of the Drake Dragonfly. I'd have to go back and watch that demo again to see if they did show it when it was like completely folded up and how it was able to move around. But I do think they've kind of addressed the portability issue of the Drake Dragonfly. So I don't think it's so much that I think that they were just trying to, you know, create a different look, something that was distinctive and unique from the you know, the Dragonfly, to create something all completely different. And you know, I do like the visual styling, but I do feel that it does seem to be more Tavaran than Xi'an. So yeah, there's that. As for something that you could carry around in your Aurora, I think that maybe Jeremy Clarkson has something that you might be interested in. Alright, next up, Alan Crow. 550 seems a little slow for a small mass that's all engine in space. The Dragonfly should do 550, and the Nox should do at least 900. Well, I think that what those speed limits are in space is not so much an expression of like game balancing. It's more of it's kind of, if I were to interpret, if I were to speak for CIG and put words in their mouth, I might be totally wrong here, but my take on it is that is what they're trying to, like, what they're trying to set up with that is that, you know, these are the limits of, you know, if you're in space and you're holding on to this bike, that connection between your hands and the handlebars, or between your legs kind of squeezing to hold on to the bike, that connection is basically all that's keeping you on the bike, and you're still technically two separate masses even though you're holding on to the bike. And so I guess the shear, if you were to turn the bike at that speed, would be enough that it would kind of separate those two masses. It would pull the two of you apart, and you know, the G-forces would quickly overcome anything that you would be able to hold on to. And I think that when people think about things like this in, you know, in their mind, in their heads, when they imagine it, they don't ever really fully come to grips with the fact that it's two separate masses, like the pilot, you know, being shifted around in the cockpit when they make these videos highlighting how your view is going to change because your head's shifting around inside the cockpit. That's kind of because you're two separate masses. You're not one unified piece. And so, you know, you are going to kind of suffer under the physics of, you know, having to make these high G turns and all these things like that. You know, I'm not a physicist, so obviously I don't have the full toolkit to verbalize what I'm trying to say, but I think that this is more an expression of the physical limitations of a human within the universe rather than a game balance decision. I might be totally wrong, and I would concede quite easily on that point, but that would be my interpretation of it. All right, next up, Tom N. Do we know if the Prospector is coming out in 3.0? No news is bad news in SE. Well, the good news is that though I don't fully know if mining is coming out in 3.0, I kind of don't think that it is, but I'd have to dig in and really look. But what I can tell you is this, is that the Prospector, its completion date has come and gone, and it has never been altered in the production schedule. So for all we know, the Prospector is completely finished at this point, though obviously there will be iterations in the future, changes made here and there, but it was completed on the 19th of May. Now, not last month, but the month before now. So yeah, it should be entirely done and in 3.0. And in this case, no news is the fact that no, it's done. It's in the bag. It's finished. It's just waiting for a patch to be put into, which is 3.0. All right, and finally, the Canadian Will. Minion, lots of questions were asked twice, basically because people posted them and then voted them up, and that's how we get double questions asked. I know, I was just having fun with it and just goofing because Friday was kind of, well, more Thursday into Friday, but Friday was kind of a rough day, so I was kind of in a bit of a giddy, goofy mood, just you know, trying to balance off the shittiness that had come before. So I was just having some fun when I said, bitch, we already answered this question. I was just goofing. Anyways, that's the show for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Quantum travel initiated.